It's been 2 weeks since India announced ISM 2.0, a $13 billion second phase of the India Semiconductor Mission, following 12 approved projects and 3 units already inaugurated under Phase 1. My colleagues, ET's tech editor Surabhi Agarwal and Shubhayan Chakraborty spoke to India's IT Secretary S. Krishnan on what's changed, how startups will now be funded, and where India stands on AI and social media regulation. It's Friday, the 7th of August. I'm Anirban Chaudhary. This is the Morning Brief.
Mr. Krishnan, thank you so much for speaking to the Economic Times. I wanted to kick off this conversation by asking you that it's been almost 2 weeks since we saw the major announcement around ISM 2.0. The government has announced the second phase of the India Semiconductor Mission with the budget of $13 billion. What is the initial reaction that you're seeing from the industry? What are the initial thoughts? Take us through some of that.
Industry has been extremely positive, and not just here but elsewhere in the world as well. It's something that they've been waiting for, and we think this is good to build momentum towards Semicon, where we can showcase what is happening. I think what Semicon last year showed was that India was finally being taken seriously. Now, the delivery has been steady, in the sense that 3 units have already been inaugurated by the Prime Minister, and where manufacturing has started, shipments have started. So they see it. I mean, seeing is believing, the fact that that has happened. And hopefully maybe 2 more units will come on stream in the course of the current calendar year. So I think there's a very good story from India to tell.
Right.
And ISM 2.0 in that sense has come at the right time, and it has all the elements which we need. So a lot of effort went into designing it and putting all the various elements in place. So the response has been very, very positive.
Just taking a look back at ISM so far, we have seen that it has been very successful in laying down the foundation of the entire semiconductor ecosystem that has been budding in our country. We have seen 12 proposals being approved by the government so far. One of them is the big chip fabrication unit by the Tatas, which is coming up in Dholera in Gujarat. And there are several chip assembly units coming up. We just wanted to understand from you, what are some of the timelines on the marquee projects? And if you can also take us through the fact that how ISM 1.2 so far has given the government the understanding and the knowledge to take forward or craft ISM 2.0 now.
I think the key thing is that we demonstrated that we can deliver, and I think that is a very important element of this. We have a reasonably good mix of projects which have come up. There are 12 projects which have been selected, and through a very rigorous process. Many did not qualify for various reasons, because that's not something that the government does. There's a financial group that looks into all the aspects with independent experts, and they give us advice, and it's on the evidence that we move forward. So now the 12 projects, if you see, there is 1 silicon fab, 1 silicon carbide compound semiconductor fab plus packaging, and 1 micro LED fab plus packaging. So these 3 combine some element of a fab. So we can effectively say by the time they're built out, we'll have actually 3 fabs. Then we have 1 advanced packaging unit, and then we have 8 regular packaging units, OSATs and ATMPs. So I think it's a good mix to hand. It will help us sort of build from this place. There's been some clustering. You have a clustering in Gujarat, you have a clustering in Orissa, then some other locations where they've come up. Which has been very successful, of course, was the DLI program. And where we've had 24 companies which have been picked for the DLI, of which 15 have got VC funding. You see a lot more of this in the days to come. 3 have been inaugurated the course of this year already, and then hopefully 2 more before the end of the year, and hopefully the fab either towards the end of 27 or sometime in 28, early 28.
Right. But what we heard were that because of the geopolitical challenges, US-Iran war, there are some supply chain constraints because of which some of these projects are getting delayed. So what's your view?
There are minor constraints there, and the other thing is that the way a fab is constructed is completely new to contractors and others in India. So there is a learning curve. So between the first project from Micron to Tata, we learn. So at each stage we learn and move forward. It's an opportunity for our contracting companies also to learn, because it's very, very specialized, very different from anything else we build.
Mr. Krishnan, one of the most interesting aspects of ISM 2.0 has been the fact that the government is going to back startups by investing in it. Now, that's a great idea that Government of India is coming in as at the seed stage as an investor. But some of the concerns are also the fact that, it is a very, very risky proposition because, as we all know, a lot of the startups fail, right? So how are you going to manage the risk of this entire ecosystem that comes with investing in startups?
Okay, 2 or 3 things. I think the first and important thing is that startups were supported even in ISA 1.0.
Through DLI.
Yeah, through DLI. So this is a continuation of our policy to support startups. So there were a few specific learnings of the way DLI was implemented in ISM 1.2. And therefore, what we need to do better. One of the learnings was that the total amount which we were prepared to provide, which was capped at 50 crores, may not be enough to meet the needs to actually build out and design a chip, especially for higher end functions. Lower investment would be needed. So there is a question of how do you provide this higher end investment? Now, typically in jurisdictions like the US, especially Silicon Valley and so on, a lot of the funding after stage comes from VCs and venture capitalists and others. Idea is you have to crowd in that money. So, combining these 2 ideas, he decided after a great deal of consultation, we'll go in for an approach where we the grant element stays where it is at 15 crores. But beyond that, as investments come in, when a startup is actually able to raise money from the market, from VC investors, then we match that in this. The idea there is that we will have a set of whitelisted funds from the deep tech funds and other funds through a fund manager. Because you see, the point is that a fund will not focus on semiconductors. The option was you put money into a fund and the fund focuses on semiconductors. That is unlikely to happen. Because they will want to diversify risk. They will focus on deep tech. They'll focus on 4 or 5 areas, not just on one. So our objective is only semiconductors. We are not looking at the other elements. So what we do instead is saying that, look, all right, I don't care about the other investments you put in, but in semiconductor design, whatever investment you make, we will match into that particular entity. So it protects us in 2 or 3 ways. One, that the selection is not made by government. We are not picking winners and losers here. It is a market-based appreciation of what can work, what cannot work. And it's also from a wide cross-section of the VC funds, or just wanted to. So this is the first element. The second element is that we at least have the opportunity to get back something. Startups fail, but how do VC funds succeed? They succeed by the fact that if there are 10 investments, maybe 5 will fail, 5 will succeed. So we have the same chance of success. And the 5 who succeed will pay back adequately to cover up for the losses that the 5 who fail.
Sir, ISM 2.0 has different levels of incentives when it comes to advanced and traditional packaging for semiconductors. Now, similarly, when it comes to fabrication units, silicon fabs will now get higher incentives than other kinds of fabs. So we were trying to understand what is the reason behind this differentiated approach.
We learned this from the first phase. This is after very detailed discussions with stakeholders and others as to how it should be done. And I think there's a fair amount of unanimity in the way this has been structured. You see, the point here is very simple. The point here is that when we did the first scheme, there was the first time commercial fabs and ATMPs would be built in India. At that stage, there's a lot more uncertainty, a lot more incentive is needed to cover for all of those factors, whether it can actually happen or not. Now, when you have a track record of having grounded 12 projects and having supported their execution and so on, confidence builds. To that extent, clearly you have to compensate less for the uncertainty. Then when we launched ISM 1.0, it was not clear to what extent the states would step in and provide their assistance. That became clearer over time. So there's a substantial assistance of about 50% of what the central government gives, which is given by the states. So you have to factor that in. So the uncertainty goes and 50% comes in. Now, in the first phase, as I told you, there are going to be 8 ATMP and OSAT plants. So we've achieved some degree of success in that area. We can sort of prioritize other things over this. Now, the fabs are still our first priority because that is a critical thing that needs to happen. Thereafter, why the differentiation between advanced packaging and ordinary packaging? See, advanced packaging has two advantages. One, that it is still nascent in the sense it's a new industry. And if we can jump into a new industry early, then it's a good thing, right?
We are seeing globally that various governments, be it from the US to Korea to Taiwan, everybody is pumping huge dollars into semiconductors. We are seeing a global crisis for things like memory. Obviously, compute demand is at sky high. So that's point number one. Now, how can India in some way utilize this opportunity? And secondly, can we match up to some of the investments that are being pumped in by governments globally? Like, for example, what is happening in the US? What's your view on this?
I think we are trying to balance. I think what we are doing in this country is trying to see that we make sensible and prudent bets in this industry. We don't try to go to the cutting edge technologies, which are much more expensive. We are trying to go with more proven technologies where your chances of success are higher.
Yeah.
And where the space is getting vacated by a number of the mature countries and where there is a proven demand and a stable demand which needs to be taken care of. So I think that is important.
Okay. Moving gears, if you look at the last couple of weeks and what is happening in the space, in the social media space in the country right now, we have opened up multiple fronts with various companies. The first issue was, of course, the entire user verification mandate that WhatsApp rolled out and the kind of issues that we saw with that. And then this entire protests started and, we saw a lot of takedowns and things like that. Now, what is your view on how does Government of India wants to regulate or manage social media in the country? Do you think that we need to look at probably or arrive at another way in which some of these platforms need to be managed, be regulated, or have a greater responsibility for the content on them?
Let's be very clear. In the country's fundamental law, Article 19, there is freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And that is subject to reasonable restrictions that can be imposed, which is contained in Article 19.
Yeah.
Right? So, Article 19, Clause 2 gives the government or gives the state reasonable grounds on which the right to freedom of speech can be restricted. And of those grounds, the provisions of the IT Act, especially Section 69A, are limited to certain grounds. In addition, of course, there is Section 79, which provides safe harbor for the internet intermediaries, subject to certain conditions, including that they follow the guidelines and they don't do anything unlawful. So the two come on slightly different footing. So we operate within the realm of the law. So under 69A, there is something which violates those four conditions, which is security of state, public order, friendly relations with foreign countries, and defense of India, then we step in. If it's not one of those, then under 79, 79 to 2C, the IT intermediary guidelines, which contain the framework of what guidelines they're expected to follow. We bring it to the notice of the social media intermediaries, saying that, look, you're at risk of losing your antenna and you want to save. This is a framework. We are operating well within that framework. There are certain issues and there are certain lacuna which people have pointed out, including that all the powers are with the state. So what happens to individuals who are affected by this? This is a question which has been raised with MeitY by the Parliamentary Standing Committee and others, saying how do you protect the rights of individuals because something goes viral which is against it? How do they even appeal? How do they take action? What can we do? So that is something that we are acting on. We'll have to see how that particular aspect, the grievance officer and the grievance appellate committee mechanism under the IT rules, we have to review how effective it has been, whether it needs to be given more teeth, and how we can structure it better. That is something we have to look at so that individuals' grievances also get addressed.
Right. So you're talking about giving greater rights to individuals for content on social media platforms. That's very interesting. But let me ask you this. What do we do when the individual is the prime minister of the country?
The point here is very simple and direct. I think there are 2 or 3 elements. One, wherever there's a violation of law, they fall into multiple categories. We very carefully apply our mind. Where it represents any of the 4 clauses under our Section 69A, we take action under that, and they act on it fairly quickly. 2, where there's a provision of any other law, defamatory content and so on. So that is acted under Section 79. Then 3, since they have their own community guidelines, they have to act on the basis of their community guidelines, and those actions are also fairly extensive. 4, we've recently brought in the rule relating to synthetically generated information.
Right.
And many of these creations are synthetically generated and they are often not labeled, and there are all of these issues. So there again, and just because it's synthetically generated, it doesn't mean it can be unlawful. So on that basis, again, they are required to act and they often act. And which is what we periodically remind social media companies that where there's a violation of law, they need to act quickly to block or to take down the relevant content.
Just a reaction of yours on what kind of conversations with Meta and Twitter that you've been having a lot of conversations with these companies over the last few days, in fact, over the last few weeks, over the takedown of PM's speech, and a lot of other content which has been floating around on their platforms. So what can you tell us?
Well, I think as far as Meta is concerned, they have apologized to the government, saying that we are sorry that this content has come in this form. It should not have come. I think that is something that they have they've expressed regret, and there's been an apology from their side, which is good. I mean, we are glad that they recognize that there was a mistake which has happened and that needed to be rectified. I think, and that is an important recognition. But on the other hand, they've given us also the reason why it happened. And while they've explained how the error took place and what happened, I think we are both in agreement after discussions that technically they can actually do better to prevent this, and they promise to put in place mechanisms by which this does not happen in the future.
Let me ask you about this entire conversation about AI and the whole geopolitics around it. If we look at the developments that have happened in the US and China over the last couple of months, we've seen the US government increasingly trying to control not just the hardware but even the models. Companies like Anthropic had to stop the launch of their latest models because the US government won't allow them. US government has asked companies like OpenAI to vet the models by the government before they launch it. In this entire kind of build-up that is happening, where governments are increasingly controlling who has access to the latest models or the hardware, where do you think India is in this entire AI race? And what does the future look like for us?
Yeah, I mean, two different things. And I think we need to look at this AI thing a little carefully. See, originally, the whole thing was the US was the strongest thing which would say that there should be no regulation of AI. Now, when you are banning access, you're automatically regulating.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, something we need to recognize, that there's a dichotomy there. We have a situation where globally the need to sort of look at this regulation much more carefully comes in. And this whole issue of what do you do with open source models and knowledge, fundamentally it's about knowledge going from one place to another. So that those are all issues. But in parallel, we are also building our capacity. So we have to build capacity. There are no shortcuts here.
So let me conclude by asking you that, in terms of the India AI mission, we've done a lot. We have given access to the cheapest compute in the world to Indian companies. We have backed almost 12 foundational models. Now, does that make you comfortable in terms of where India is right now and in terms of the capabilities that are coming out of India?
Nearly, we are sort of nearing a stage where we would be committing resources. Once the resources are committed, then we'll go. I'm not very comfortable with the word sovereignty because different people have different understandings. I think from an India perspective, the word I would use is strategic autonomy, saying that we need to have some degree of autonomy. You won't have everything under your control, but you have to make sure that you're not too dependent on any one source. You have it coming from a multiplicity of sources, and you have all of those elements which get built into this. And you build some capacity yourself to make sure that nobody else can hold you to ransom.
Would you like to spell out for us that, what will make you really comfortable when you feel that, okay, I have done A, B, and, we are fine now?
I mean, it is difficult to say today because, things keep changing. I think
very rapidly, yes.
We need to be flexible in this space. We need to have, the first and most important thing is we need to have good quality human resources to do any of this. So that becomes the very important thing. Second, we need the infrastructure. So we need to build the infrastructure. Third, we need to sort of make sure that at least, the investment, and that's what the government can do. Third, you need a private sector which is prepared to take those kind of risks, build the products which the world needs. So lots of these things.
So that was our conversation on India's semiconductor push, social media accountability, and the AI race. This episode was produced by me, sound designed by Indraleen Bhattacharjee and Amrit Reggie. Keep listening to our podcasts on your favorite platforms. Stay tuned.